Final Fantasy VII has been announced again. We talk about Destiny 2, the season of Opulence, and the Riot Games protest here on episode 5 of the Gaming Casuals podcast. Welcome to episode 5 of the Gaming Casuals podcast. Before we begin, we are so happy you guys are here. Follow us on all things social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And do not forget, we actually have a podcast part of this. It's on Spotify and iTunes, so follow it where podcasts are sold. We're going to begin with what games we've been playing, and for me, it's been Final Fantasy VII, which we'll talk about. But with that segue, Zach, what have you been playing, buddy?
Yeah, I've been playing some very odd games. I'll start with the least of the oddness with some more Civilization 6, except I went for a religious victory, which is among one of the most challenging ways to win Civilization. I chose.
How do you win religiously?
Yeah, how does that work? Well, I chose Gandhi, so I had a leg up, right? And basically, you choose your religion. I was toting Shinto as Gandhi, and you basically convince everyone to follow you, and you win.
Oh, so convincing everybody else that you're right.
Yes, basically. Okay. Yeah. So it's a little bit different than warfare, like you take over, or economic victory, that kind of thing. So
did you have to war? Is that to commit war? Is that the term you'd use? Do you have to war?
Yes.
To bring them under the Shinto religion?
Yeah. No, you do religious war, which is like you're like smiting people, and then you're like talking to them. It's like a different kind of warfare.
You had a Shinto podcast, so I'm sure that helped bring in followers.
Sure. Yeah. Coming off the the other big thing was Conan Exiles. It was the free game for April for PlayStation Network. So I'm kind of in this transitionary period where I'm looking for a new game to play. Tried out Conan Exiles. It's a survival game similar to Rust or DayZ or 7 Days to Die, all of those, which I usually am not the biggest fan of, but this definitely touted itself as a single player or co-op game, and I totally got lost in it. It was amazing.
Really?
Yes, I love this game. You build your house, you like survive, you get new gear, and my biggest thing with that is always it's usually a multiplayer game, and your house gets destroyed overnight by like 15 friends that can kind of band together. But in this, it's designed around a single player or 2-player experience, or at least part of it is, and it reflects that. So it was enjoyable to go through. It was like a hardcore Skyrim.
I'm thinking, so I was thinking like Minecraft, but better graphics.
Yeah, so it's less like voxel building and more of like an RPG.
Okay.
So on a 1 out of 10 Zach scale, what would you give Conan Exiles?
I'd give it a solid 7. It's basically every time I kill someone in this game, their body disappears, things are clipping through the ground, things are breaking nonstop. It's like someone just got out of like game dev school and wanted to make something cool, but it's still fun. It's
it was
still really
free,
fun.
Which is most of the Conan franchise, by the way.
Right.
Like the movies, the comics. Not the comics. Anyway.
All in pace. But nice. That's been it for me for sure.
Nice.
Fun.
How about you, Brandon?
So I've still been playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and I finally 100% of the game. So
nice.
that
Congratulations.
Was thank you. It feels good. I love those games. They really do a great job. The story was fine. The setting, I kind of like the setting of the other 2 games, but Morse is more in the jungle and stuff. It was fine, but the game mechanics they do a fantastic job with.
It's so smooth.
And especially with all the collectibles that you can get, they do it really well on how you find them on the map. There's all kinds of ways to unlock things so you're not completely lost trying to find these little tiny survival caches which are buried underground.
Nice.
It's something that they actually have little maps you can find throughout. It's done really well. But yeah, 100% of the game. I saw at the end I could do New Game Plus. I thought of you and I said, nah, I'm good. Because that was one thing. I think the only reason why I would have done that was to get the last couple of achievements, which is beat the game on like super hard difficulty. And there was one I missed. But I was just like, you know what? I got the most out of this game. I really enjoy it. I don't have the DLC. I thought that came with, because it's again a Game Pass game. I thought DLC was part of that. It didn't look like it was. So I said, great, I did what I came here to do, and that one is finished. And last night, I actually started another game. I was excited about this. It is another new Game Pass game. It just came out, I think, this week. It was one that came out about 2 years ago on the Xbox. It was the same makers. I think Fulbright is the game makers. They did Gone Home, which was a walking simulator back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like a few years ago. But it's called Tacoma. Tacoma is set on a space station, and you basically show up there, and I'm only like about 15, 20 minutes into the game. I started it late last night and fell asleep.
Rumor has it you fell asleep doing that.
I do that. I fell asleep because I did start it pretty late, and I have kids. So I didn't get too far into it, but I think the game is only like an hour or two long. So it's not a big deal. So as from what I hear. So I started that game. It was pretty cool. You go around this empty space station, and you try and find out what happened. You see a lot of these digital like AR recordings of this crew that was on this space station, and it's really cool because
I love piecing together a story like that. Yeah. Like a lot of games are like that.
It's really neat because the first one I saw, you come to this little eating area. I can't remember what it's called, but you go
Cafeteria?
in there. Yeah, something like that. And you start. I don't know. Sorry,
an area kitchen? That you eat in.
I don't know. Yeah, it was weird. But you start the recording, and you see all these silhouettes of these crew members, and some will go off into another room, and you can actually follow them and continue to hear what they were talking about and who they were talking with. Nice. And then you can rewind and then follow somebody else who is in some other part of the room, and then you keep rewinding, fast forwarding to hear this whole part of the story, and you piece together things. Essentially, you're trying to find out what went wrong.
That's cool.
So yeah, I got a little bit of the ways in. I'm excited to continue that story to see how it resolves. But
that reminds me of Prey. Did you ever play Prey?
Oh yeah. So that's actually just came on Game Pass as well. I am so excited about that because I actually rented that game on Redbox when it first came out.
Yes.
And now I have it for free, so I'm so excited.
There you go.
If you like your aliens, space station horror, that's Prey's great.
I don't know. Like, I love Dead Space 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Is it going to beat out Dead Space?
I haven't played Dead Space, but I have them because, I played the demo of Dead Space 1 back when it first came out. That thing was freaky.
Dude, so crazy. Dead Space 1, I mean, I put Metroid Prime 1 and Dead Space 1, like my favorite space games to play.
That's what I hear. I mean, they had a marketing campaign where they put like parents and everyone of all ages in a room, and they showed them like clips of Dead Space.
Oh, really?
And it was literally just their reaction. That was their marketing material, and they did it for a commercial.
It was just the small demo I played. I was like, okay, I don't know if this is for me because I'm not much on like the horror games, but it was.
Don't play Dead Space in a dark room all alone.
Leave
a light on.
Yeah.
Wow. But with that, there's a lot of news going on in our gaming community this week, but we've got a little bit of news about Riot Games. They had a protest this week, and Zach, talk about Riot Games. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so we spend some time talking about the business of like making video games, and this is kind of in the same vein of protecting the employee, but in kind of a different way. About a year ago, Cecilia D'Anastasio, I think that's how you pronounce her name, with Kotaku, wrote about allegation, some harassment stuff, and unfair pay. And there was lawsuits that came up against Riot Games, who makes League of Legends. They're a game dev studio. They actually absorbed several people from Blizzard Entertainment. So that lawsuit went through, and kind of connected to that, there's this big thing that's come up of forced arbitration, which I had to immediately texted my sister who's in law school, and she's very much in this like instructional mindset. I'm like, please just explain arbitration to me. And basically, arbitration is you agree to bring an issue in front of a third party, an interested third party, instead of going through like the court or something. So arbitration on its own can be a good thing, but forced arbitration from a company is basically Riot Games saying, if you have an issue with us, we have to do arbitration. We have to go through somebody that's not the court. In a scenario where this is like very intense and very real with harassment or unfair pay, forced arbitration can be really bad, because then there's not a voice to go to the court, where we probably should handle something like this. So that leads us to the walkout. There is a internal meeting they have called Riot Unplugged. And they smartly called this Rioters Unplugged, and it was a walkout of about 150, a little bit more employees. And they basically just protested, and it was a peaceful protest. They talked about what they wanted, what they thought was fair. And I think the coolest thing that came out of this was, at the very end, a lot of interviews with the Riot employees the general vibe was very positive. They still work there. They went back in, and they feel like a lot of change came out of it. So it was a big deal. It's a little different than the crunch culture we're usually talking about. It was definitely a cultural protest, which you don't see very often. It wasn't directly connected to pay, but hoping to see more from Riot. And I think on a bigger scale, if we were to zoom out, this tells other industries like we need to look at gender equality, and we need to look at just the important cultural aspects of our game development.
Excellent.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Does that affect any of the games? Are they?
Yeah, will that affect?
How is that affecting? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not right now. I mean, they are in like legal proceedings right now. So basically, forced arbitration is like borderline unconstitutional because it's the company saying like, don't use our legal system. Kind of let's go through here. So there's precedent. They can go through the court. So there's not really any real impact to the game right now. But I imagine it'll affect the like C-level, if anything, because that's kind of who was involved initially.
Right. And speaking of politics and gaming, we actually had a U.S. Senator introduce a bill talking about loot boxes and pay-to-win microtransactions.
Yes.
What's going on with that a little
This
bit?
is one light topic to another. Josh Hawley, with a senator from Missouri, actually proposed a bill to ban loot boxes and pay-to-win microtransactions with games played by minors or games where the developers knowingly sell loot boxes to minors or minors are knowingly playing.
Like Fortnite or like I think Candy Crush was an example they gave.
Yeah. This is really interesting because microtransactions can be predatory. This is an example of the games industry not being able to handle loot boxes on their own and the government stepping in and taking care of it. So, it's a big threat. I don't know if it's actually going to go through. There's a lot of money in that. There's a ton tied up in microtransactions. Right. And as we've seen, the $60 price point for video games hasn't budged in a very long time. So microtransactions can be really good as a business decision and even for consumers if it's done the right way. So, and
that's the key, is if it's done the right way. I know a lot of times when I think, what was the big game? Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yes.
Microtransactions, I think all of the fun things of the characters were all gated behind microtransactions. And I think you could earn your way, but it was just a crazy amount of play time to get there. And I believe after a complete pushback on that, didn't they remove microtransactions from that game? And
they limited it in some kind. Some kind. So detail about that.
Yeah, if done the right way, microtransactions can be good. But a lot of times, if you are gating a lot of content behind paywalls after you've already paid $60 for this game, that is tough. But microtransactions done the right way is important. Games like Apex Legends, I know
that's their whole model.
Fortnite, it's the thing. It's a free-to-play game, so I love that as a guy who doesn't want to spend a ton of money on games, especially ones I'm not sure I'll like. I'll jump in for free, and if I want to pay, I can. I have that option, and if I don't want to, I can still play just for fun. And those games are fun to jump into for a session or so, and play completely without any kind of ties. Monetarily.
Totally.
So,
right. Now I want to bring this back to just something, looking at the consumer end of things. Really this bill was quote unquote games played by minors. And just to talk about that a little bit, like these games, let's be honest with them, like they are trying to market to these younger players and get them to spend money on this stuff. Like I think I could bring up parent after parent who has said like my son just wants to buy the next Fortnite skin or whatever. And so like going into the science of it though, microtransactions are dopaminergic. When you buy something in game or something that's real quick, like you get that spike of dopamine. Like it's addictive. It is an addicting thing to happen. Like I play a game called Fire Emblem Heroes. I can't say that I'm proud of it, but I love Fire Emblem. But they have this gacha system, which is essentially like you gamble for a character that's really great to play in the game. And so I've spent some money on that, and that's like when you get that new character that's really great, you're like, holy cow, like that feels really, really good. Let's spend more money. And so there's definitely like this aspect of like these games are trying to market to younger players and trying to essentially facilitate in them a habit of buying games like the touch of their phone, which is going to translate into like 10 to 15 years from now, they're still going to do it. They're going to be conditioned to that. So there is a little bit of that happening, and it's really important as parents that really like hamper down on why it's important that kids understand what's going on in those games and kind of having a limit to that. But it's all pretty interesting to kind of talk about that.
Especially, being minors, that's not their card, that's mom and dad's card.
Right,
and that's one thing with my 3.5-year-old. He'll see something, he'll play a game, some free thing that my wife downloaded on her phone or something, and it's just something for kids. And you click on these ads, and it pops up, and it's like, it's so easy for people to just buy, a bunch of whatevers, that cost $1.99, and so
times 10
exactly
one day, and
exactly.
times 10 the other day.
We were all Apple employees. We remember the customer coming in saying, "My son spent $1,300 on Fire Emblem. How can I get a refund?"
That was his mom, right?
Right. That was my mom.
That's John. He's a grown man. He actually has to own that. No, but
so you can't get that money back. Sorry.
Exactly.
Right. Yes. So speaking of actual gaming news in the gaming world, we actually had a pretty big announcement again.
Yes.
I'm going to say again in quotations, but Final Fantasy VII was announced at the PlayStation Days of Play event this past week. And to put it in perspective, the last announcement trailer we have for Final Fantasy VII was 2015 E3.
That's crazy,
So,
by the way.
4 years ago.
That was 4 years ago when we had this. And I honestly forgot that it was still a thing. I mean, I knew in the back of my head, and it's like, oh, that's right. That's supposed to be here.
Yeah.
That's crazy. 4 years ago.
And Final Fantasy fans have been clamoring, like, what are you going to give me? Like, I want a Final Fantasy VII remastered. It was essentially like, it was a big deal when it happened in 2015. Square Enix had a developer shift midway through. Some things got scrapped. Like, the news went dark for a while. People weren't sure what was going on. And now we have this incredible 1-minute trailer that we've actually posted to Twitter. So go check it out if you haven't. But it looks really gorgeous. They've promised new information in June, and as you know, Sony is not in E3, so there's going to be some kind of event talk about the state of Final Fantasy VII. But Zach, I know you're a big Final Fantasy guy. I know you've played Final Fantasy VII. I have not finished it myself, but what does this mean for you as a Final Fantasy guy? Like, what does this look like?
I'm really excited, and I think I'm tempered to the point where I think this is going to be a really cool game. That's going to be a new, refined version that's going to be fun to play of a game I love, and I know that game that I absolutely love, it defines my childhood, is still going to be there.
That's good.
And to play a cool, semi-different version of this is also really cool because it's not just the game, the carbon copy of the game, it's the game's world and the characters. If I can see that in a different way too, I'm totally open for it. So you mentioned 2015 was the announcement. I quickly got excited and then put that deep down into my mind. I'm like, this is not coming out for a while.
It's going to be a while.
So now it's harder seeing all this footage and hearing Eris's voice and Barrett's voice and seeing them interact and even just Jesse for 2 seconds. It's amazing. And all we've seen is the first act of Final Fantasy VII, which is the reactor, whatever, avalanche project. So I'm super excited.
I'm curious. They said more news in June.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What do you think that news will be? Do you think, it's maybe early on the E3 predictions, I know we're going to have an episode about that soon. Do you think this is are we going to see this soon?
Here's what I'll say. I think this is me just shooting at the wind a little bit here. But essentially what it's going to be is they've announced that in the trailer at the very end, it's going to be for PS4. There's a PS4 logo there. So I can assume they're at least going to have it for PS4. If I were to be a guessing man, it'll be similar to a Nintendo Switch Breath of the Wild thing, where they have this game released at the end of the PS4 life cycle, but they're going to have a way better mastered version for the next gen PlayStation console. And I'm not sure that we could see more of that, but this game has been in development for a long time. I don't think it's going to be a soon release. It's going to take a little bit of time to get that all hashed out.
Unless I think they might still stick with the episodic formula. In that case, they can get it out a little bit quicker. I really, that's my one gripe is I really don't want an episodic release.
No, episodic. What was Final Fantasy VII originally that? Because
no,
okay,
it was a bulk game on I think 304 discs.
Yeah, that's what
I'm just kidding. 3 discs maybe.
I remember it being a lot. It wasn't
right. Yeah. So I mean, the way they release it might be episodic. I mean, it's not confirmed, but it would make sense if it was. At least from a business standpoint, I can see why they would do that. So I don't know. We'll see.
I like that though. It come out right at the transition between this current gen and the next gen. I think I don't know. The gameplay scene in that trailer seemed pretty.
Yeah, it was definitely Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah,
engine.
15.
So I don't know. I'm hoping we see something it'd be awesome to have a surprise in June saying, hey,
I would love it.
December. This year, I don't know,
Right.
But they know.
Really cool.
Don't do that to my heart.
I know.
Don't do that to me.
When Final Fantasy VII came out, it was a big PlayStation 1 seller, so they know, like, let's just do that again.
That's true.
Whatever, 20 years later, and, knock it out
That's
the park.
smart.
Right.
Yeah. That's smart.
And it only helps that they already have, if you guys haven't played Final Fantasy VII yet, you can play the originals on PS4. You can get on the arcade. And then Nintendo Switch has also got it. I've been playing on Switch. It's been great. You can actually play the game at 3 times the speed.
That's really cool.
Also, you can also give yourself unlimited limit break, which is nice to get through the game and learn the story. But you can play the game on 3 times speed, get on the Switch console, and you kind of catch up before the game gets released.
As well as Xbox. Don't want to leave the Xbox.
Is it on Xbox? I guess it is.
All of the Final Fantasy.
Does 9 have the fast forward?
9 does have a fast forward
9's
option.
the worst because the dialogue's not skippable.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 9 does have a fast forward option,
That's
and
awesome.
also an infinite, I think they have maximum attack power, so you can
Is
one hit
that
everything in the game.
a glitch or is that a?
No, it's on purpose.
It's on purpose. Okay.
Yeah, they give you a little bit just to kind of keep you going.
We've grown as humans. We can't hold our attention as long.
We have to have.
We must fast forward.
Got a boss, insta kill. It's whatever.
yeah.
So, but also other news going on this week. Destiny 2. Bungie has announced their season of Opulence. The season will drop June the 4th, so I guess next month. Very, very, very soon. They haven't done a whole lot of data on what's going on in Opulence, but what we can expect of what they have told us is they have a new raid being announced. It's called the Crown of Sorrow, and it's taking place what seems to be on Leviathan, so the Year 1 Destiny 2 raid area.
Cool.
And then we have a power level requirement for day 1 announced. It is 715.
Okay.
So currently the light level cap at this moment is 700. And then 715 will be raid. And so what Destiny has done and what Bungie has done, there's really a huge community pool toward day 1 completions for raid. Bungie is going to change that up a little bit, how they open that up to players. So the raid release is actually staggered 6 hours after the season releases. So at 7 p.m. Eastern time, the raid will drop. And that is to encourage players to begin prepping their power level for that. But also Bungie is really hampering the ability to power level to complete the raid. See, a lot of players to the previous season will collect these powerful engrams that you can then open that gives you a higher light level. They don't want that abuse happening early in the game, so they're going to cap all of the power stuff at 700, even the last season stuff, and then once the season begins, you can begin to climb towards 715. So it'll be an interesting time for sure, but we'll learn more about that in the coming weeks. But the season is set to end in several weeks, and we've got Iron Banner coming up, and obviously some other stuff, new exotic quests going on.
You mean the
this
current
week as well.
season, the season of Drifter?
The current season of Drifter.
So will you be jumping in day 1, getting back into Destiny for season of the Opulence?
Yeah. So as far as my Destiny play is concerned, I'm still sitting at a good old 656 in light level. I have not played a whole lot of Destiny. It has not been Season of Drifter has been pretty lackluster for me as content goes. Obviously, the trick with Destiny is they know that you have to catch up. They want to make you catch up to play the game, and so I have to get back into Destiny if I want to be viable for a day 1 or a week 1 release. And so I'm going to be grinding out to 700. I'm going to be doing some the minor grindy stuff to get up there, but as far as a week 1, day 1 kind of guy, I'm not a big I like to let the raid kind of set a little bit, find some great strategies, and then eventually carry out a good raid with some friends.
Cool. So you are going to jump in and play?
I think so. I think
guess
I'm going to play.
Makes
I
sense
bought the season pass, so I might as well try it out. But I think a big part of it is there's a light grind, and there is going to be a big part of that going on next month or so for me.
Now you mentioned the raid, and you said it's going to be in Leviathan.
It's what they say. It looks like it's going to be Leviathan.
So we don't know any information about if it's a raid lair or if it's a full-on.
It is.
Raid.
It is definitely a full-on raid.
Okay, that's good.
So it's going to be something that's going to be completely new, but it's nice for taking it back to Leviathan. I think Destiny and Bungie have done a good job of bringing viability from Season 1 weapons and Season 2 weapons, and it'd be interesting to see how they cater the meta to past expansions, bringing back the Leviathan in the game. I think that'd be interesting.
On Destiny 2, it's interesting to think because now they are no longer tied to Activision with Destiny.
Yep, they're totally free.
Yeah, the way that the previous content drops have been, it's been Destiny 1, then the next year was Taken King after 2 DLC patches in between. Then it was Destiny 2 years after Destiny 1 dropped. Then you had 2 DLCs. You had Forsaken. That was the year 4.
Right.
And now we're doing this annual pass. Now that we're no longer tied, now that Bungie is no longer tied to Activision, do you think that we're going to see Destiny 3 anytime soon, or do you think they're going to continue on this whole season or annual pass type thing?
I think it's gonna. I have 2 theories of what Bungie will do with Destiny as far as that's concerned. I think they'll either actually have a Destiny 3 release for next gen consoles. I think that'd be something that I think Bungie would be wrong not to go in that direction. But I also can see them creating a Destiny MMO, similar to like a Halo thing, where they just create Destiny as a service game where you buy a premium subscription for a year and you get content slated throughout that, and then it just keeps going and going and going.
Oh, I would be in for that. That's my model. I love that.
Yeah.
Right. And so it keeps viability in with a lot of like old guns. Like I think for myself, I like Destiny 1, didn't play it a lot, but a lot of Destiny 1 stuff I wish I could bring into Destiny 2, but it just depends on how Bungie wants to float that model. And I think it's just a matter of gauging the community, because I feel like a lot of the console community in general doesn't have this idea of like, I want to stagger a game out, infinity, and just like have content released at certain points, and I buy stuff certain points. Like MMO players are gauged differently. They know that they pay a per service per month and they get content as long as they subscribe. Whereas I think console players are still, as a market, are in this, I need to buy a physical copy. This game needs a subsequent release for subsequent consoles and for hardware advancement, all that jazz.
Or DLC over a monthly payment. It's a little bit of an antiquated model at this point, I think, but I still think it works. You're paying the developers, you're getting constant content stream.
I like that for the constant thing. Yeah. I know for like World of Warcraft, $15 a month is still pretty steep. So it depends on the price, of course. That's one thing I feel like, again, being a dad and not having a ton of time for games, if I'm paying for something on a monthly basis,
right,
I want to get the most out of it. And if I don't, then it's going to really feel like I'm going to turn this off for next month.
I think the biggest point for Bungie, however, will be if it's going to take that model, it's really being able to bring in players who are just beginning to start Destiny, which I think is like a huge thing. You have a maturation of players throughout the Destiny seasons, and so I was in Forsaken all the time, and now that I'm having to catch up to get into Season of Opulence, I kind of feel a little left behind, and it can be intimidating for new players to bring themselves into that. Whereas a fresh start on Destiny 3 sets the playing field, and if Bungie can really bring up like lower level players, bring them content that helps them get to the core content a lot faster, it's a different story than having a release happen on a certain day.
That's true.
And having a new game start fresh from scratch. So
and it'll be their first time on their own, which is nice.
I think it lowers barriers in a way that a new DLC or season doesn't do.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I would check out a Destiny 3 and I wouldn't check out this season. So
exactly, with the season annual pass this year. I didn't do it this year because I wasn't playing.
Too busy 100%ing Tomb Raider.
Yeah, it didn't take that long. Come on now, this hasn't been a Sekiro thing. So
right. There it is. It has begun.
I was gonna say From Software. I was gonna say Samurai games, but not Sekiro. All right, you said it, not me.
I did.
Well, we thank you guys for watching this episode of the Gaming Casuals podcast. Once again, you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and where podcasts are sold. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell. We post every day to Instagram. Follow us there, and we're here every other Monday. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you next time.
See ya.